Coming up on today's Locked On Dodgers, the Dodgers have an opponent for the NLDS, and it's the San Diego Padres. What does it mean to play the Padres? We'll get into that. We'll get into game one starters, some final roster stuff, what we think is going to happen, and then just talk about the baseball playoffs in general. We had a total of 9 games over the weekend, and yeah, it was fun to watch and no stress yet, and now the stress can come. So that's what's on tap, so make sure to keep it Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. This is the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And make it easy on yourself and subscribe in both of those places, and you'll never miss a day because you know we're not going to. If this is your first time listening or watching, I'm Vince Samperio. That's Jeff Snider. If this was your first time listening or watching anytime pretty much over the last 2-3 weeks, you maybe have only seen one of us or both of us if you watch multiple days, but we're here together and hopefully together for the majority of the postseason, or at least all the postseason. And yeah, Jeff, the Dodgers have an opponent. They are going to play the San Diego Padres, who they played 19 times during the regular season, but we didn't get enough of them in the regular season, so now we get them a little bit more here. They took down the Mets in 3 games, the only one of the wild card round game or series to go to 3 games. And we'll get into like playing the Padres and everything else, but just the initial thoughts. Did you think this was going to be the outcome we got when it came down to it?
I'm not totally surprised. I think the Padres are probably a little bit better than their record showed on the overall season. Not a ton better, but a little bit better. And the Mets were not coming in hot, had hit a pretty big slump basically ever since they won that series against the Dodgers. They weren't very good after that, and lost the division on the last day or second to last day or whatever it was. And yeah, I still, if I had to put money on it, I would have put money on the Mets, simply because they had Scherzer and DeGrom. But I think that you and I probably both agree that Scherzer doesn't have quite the air of invincibility that he's had in the past. I don't think any of us would have guessed. Would he give up 7 runs, 4 home runs? Like,
Yeah, 4 home runs.
I don't think anybody would have guessed that. But I wouldn't have been shocked to see him give up a couple runs and only make it through 4 2/3 or something. I wasn't expecting him to get knocked around like that. But once they knocked him around there, I'm like, okay, well, you pretty much assume the Mets will win the DeGrom game, and they did. And then, yeah, I mean, if the Padres can knock around Scherzer, they can knock around Chris Bassett, and that's what we saw. So I wasn't shocked. And but I don't know. The Padres are a decent team.
Yeah, when it came to game 3, I mean, Musgrove, even though as bad as he pitched in the second half of the season, I would, trust him more than I trust Chris Bassett. That's how it ended up going. Back-to-back weekends, the Mets went with their best, Scherzer, DeGrom, and Bassett, and back-to-back weekends, or one weekend they got swept, the next weekend they lost 2 out of those 3. So, yeah, I mean, when it came down to it, it was a matter of the bottom of the order for the Padres. It was Profar's up top, but it was Grisham and Nola yesterday, and some of those guys that ended up coming through for the Padres. Machado didn't do too much other than the home run once they were already ahead. Then he ended up putting up a couple hits in the last game. Juan Soto sacrificed bunt master, got a bunt down, and then ended up hitting up 2 runs later on. So it was an interesting series. I know the Dodger fans got their petty out when it came to Max Scherzer based on, how he kind of had things to say after the Dodgers' way of handling him last year, and he wasn't as effective as he maybe wanted to in the dead arm and everything else. So I think, for Dodger fans, we wanted it to go 3 games. Realistically, you didn't really have too much of a preference. If anything, the Padres are a preference just because you don't have to face Scherzer and DeGrom, even though maybe their offense is not as strong, overall. But either way, we're getting the Padres, and yeah, Jeff, it happened in 2020, and it's probably a little bit different feeling because 2020 was more charged and more everything else. This year, the Dodgers have kind of humbled the Padres in the last few years, but also, the Padres are going to be coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't really believe in the pettiness. Max Scherzer. I honestly don't think about Max Scherzer except when I'm watching him play, which I think I did 3 times this year. I don't think about him. I actually, my main bit of pettiness was more just baseball pettiness. I wanted the Mets to lose because I didn't want Buck Showalter to be rewarded for getting too cute with his rotation. If you have Jacob DeGrom in a 3-game series, you should start Jacob DeGrom in game one, and trying to play the matchups and hope to not have to use him at all, so they could use him in game one against the Dodgers. I'm like, especially a guy like Showalter, who it's been 6 years since he got totally burned and basically run out of Baltimore because he got too cute and didn't use his closer in an extra inning game, and a wild card game that they had to win. I don't know. I feel like Buck Showalter buys into his own genius talk too much, and so I was happy to see him lose that. But yeah, as far as what did you say? Because I know I just went off topic. What did you say right before I started talking? Because I had a response to that too.
The Padres are coming.
Oh yeah, yeah. This is the 5th time in the last 6 years that the Dodgers will play an NL West opponent after the regular season was over. They swept the D-backs in the NLDS in 2017. They beat the Rockies in Game 163 in 2018. They swept the Padres in the NLDS in 2020, and they who they play last year? Didn't they play somebody last year?
Giants.
The Giants. I remember that. Yeah, beat the Giants in 5 games last year in the NLDS. So yeah, it's fun. This is obviously not the same as the rivalry with the Giants, but in some ways it has more intensity to it right now. The you know it's like old money and new money. The Padres are definitely the new money rivalry. Their fans are flashing this cash all over the place, and I don't know. I wouldn't. I never did say which team I would rather have the Dodgers play because I don't believe in doing that, even though I don't believe in jinxes either. But it's like I'm not going to bring that on me. And now that they're playing the Padres, yeah, I'll say it. The Dodgers are a better team than the Padres. And all I can say is I hope that matters in this series because it doesn't always matter in a 5-game series. We saw that in 2019. Dodgers were definitely a better team than the Nationals, and that ended up not mattering for certain reasons. And all I can hope is that the Dodgers, they finished 22 games ahead of the Padres this year. The Padres could have so Dodgers went 14-5. So I guess if the Padres had swept the Dodgers in the regular season, they would have finished ahead of the Dodgers in the standings. Am I doing that math right? Because that's a 28-game swing, probably. If all 14 of those games had gone the other, I think that's a 28-game swing. So, but other than that, yeah, it wasn't a close season this year. The Dodgers are a better team than the Padres, but the Padres are going to be fired up, and sometimes that works for them, and sometimes that works against them. You can only ride emotion so long. We saw that last year. They crashed and burned in the regular season, couldn't even get through the regular season on the emotion. I do think they maybe managed that a little bit better in the regular season this year, and so maybe they have a little juice left. But I've just got my fingers crossed that actually being better at baseball will be the main determining factor in this series.
I mean, in terms of value and entertainment value for Dodger fans, this is the series you want. You want to be the one that puts away the Padres. You want to be the
As
team
long
that
as you
beats them.
win the series, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. You want to be the one that beats them. But on the flip side, you don't want to be the team that loses. You're like, that's not the team you want to lose to. If the Mets had come in and the Mets win, there's obviously that would still suck. The Dodgers finished better than whatever, but the Mets were 100 and they did win 101 games. They do have a payroll that is right there with the Dodgers, I think higher than the Dodgers, and it wouldn't, and they have shares underground. So like in the grand scheme of things, how the Dodgers lost, yeah, the Dodgers are going to get made fun of just because they're the Dodgers and everything else and 111 wins, but it wasn't as, wouldn't be that much of a deal. You could be like, look, everything kind of matches up and lines up. Whereas now with the Padres, just, finishing so far ahead of them, being, especially if you're on Dodgers Twitter, being, maybe a little bit more aggressive with the Padres and, whatever the case is, blah, 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 and just everything that's here now. You want to be the one that puts them out and puts them down, but it's the flip side that you think about of I don't want that to happen because then who knows? Realistically, you just stay off Twitter and you won't really see that stuff. At least on my end, even if, my mom's a Padre fan, but even if they win, she won't do too much bragging or anything. Just she'll brag, but she's not going to do anything over the top. So I'll survive this is the series you want, and we got it. And yeah, like I said, hopefully the Dodgers show that being a better team matters. We'll talk a little bit about game one and the matchup there. But first, let's talk about SimpliSafe. The numbers don't lie. In the last decade, over 4 million people have chosen SimpliSafe home security to protect their home. You don't earn the trust of that many people without doing something right. At SimpliSafe, your safety is the only thing that matters. And I know because I use SimpliSafe in my home. They protect you with cutting edge security technology powered by 24/7 professional monitoring agents who always have your back. Why do I love it? Because it's got the advanced technology. I'm a millennial. I'm into technology. I know how to use it, and I know how to make it work for me. And Simply Safe, you can control everything you need in your system with your app. You can watch right there. You can catch people in 4K, as they say. You can have that live stream there. You can watch it in HD. You can see everything else. That's why Simply Safe is the right thing for me, and why it could be the right thing for you. And they got that 24/7 professional monitoring. If they see something wrong, they'll call it in, and you'll be helped out. So right now, you can customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplysafe.com/lockedonmlb. You can save 20% on your SimpliSafe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month free. So go to simplysafe.com/lockedonmlb to learn more. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. Well, that's a tongue twister. All right, Jeff, we're back, and the Dodgers game one Tuesday, 6:37 p.m. local time, Dodger Stadium. We know who the Padres are going to pitch. They're going to throw Mike Clevenger, who has struggled against the Dodgers this year. It was between Clevenger and Manaea, more realistically, and both those guys have had ERAs very high against the Dodgers. Clevenger a little bit lower with that 9.69 in 3 starts. That's who's going for the Padres. Realistically, there's not much to say there. The Dodgers have faced them. They know how to beat them. It's one of those where is this the time where he's going to figure it out and pitch well? Who knows? Maybe not. Hopefully not. But for the Dodgers, they haven't yet announced who it's going to be between Julio and Kershaw. Dave Roberts said that they know, but we don't know. We'll find out later on today when they have the press conference for, the next day's starters. Usually the guy in the press conference, the Dodgers did announce the game one starter will be speaking. But yeah, Jeff, if there's the pros and cons for starting each one. Realistically, in terms of what you're going to get out of them, it probably doesn't matter. But when it gets down into like a later part of the series, that's where it might make the difference when you start game one.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be Julio. There's really no other answer. I understand playing it coy and all of that, but no matter how you slice it, uh, they've said the main determining factor is who they feel more comfortable with on regular rest in Game 5, because the Dodgers didn't do regular rest very often for anybody this year. Regular rest meaning 4 days off between starts. The Dodgers went with more than 4. I think they only had 39 or 40 starts all season on 4 days rest total as a team. And Kershaw had 5 of those, and Julio had 8 of those. Maybe Kershaw had 6. Anyway, Julio had a couple more than Kershaw did, and Julio did better in those starts too. Even though one of Kershaw's was in Colorado, if you throw that out, it was a little bit closer, but still Julio did better than Kershaw in those. Julio had a better season. Kershaw has more health concerns, more reasons why you would want to give him the extra day. Everything about this says Julio is going to be your game one starter, and I would be shocked and baffled if they tell us anything different today.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a question of who it is. And like I said, realistically, between Kershaw and Julio, you're probably going to get very similar outings from them, 6+ innings, less than a couple runs, a few, maybe Kershaw gets a little bit more strikeouts. He's been strikeout heavy recently. But the thing is, they attack differently. And people have been worried about, having left-handers. Tyler Anderson's also going to get a start. He's another left-hander. But they all attack differently. Julio's got a 3-pitch mix that he uses, intertwined and gets it in there in different ways depending on what's working from that day. Kershaw's fastball, slider, and the Uncle Charlie's just there for some fluff every once in a while. And then you got Anderson, who throws a lot different and a little bit slower. So it doesn't matter. But yeah, it should be Julio 1, Kershaw 2. Now what they decide to do 3, 4, depending if they want Gonsolin and the piggyback type, or they want Anderson and full start, whatever the case. We'll get into that later. But it's game one, Julio. Now, that's what we do know more than likely. What will be we'll find out for sure later on today. but it's also now the roster. We've talked a lot about the roster, and there's not realistically too much else for us to get into other than what happened over the weekend. Dustin May threw, Blake Trinan threw. There hasn't been any negative reports from that, so it would appear that they are doing well. They have, their arms are still on, their backs are still working, everything's looking right. Miguel Vargas did hit a home run in one of those sim games when the Dodgers played against each other. Him and Hanser are probably fighting for that last spot on the other side of things, on the offensive side. But yeah, Jeff, I don't know. Is there really, Kimbrel's the one where they didn't commit to him over the weekend. They didn't commit to him being on the roster. And they said they're still kind of figuring out based on injuries and people coming back. So I would imagine if May and Trinan are both going to be ready and good to go and on the roster, that would mean Craig Kimbrel's not on the roster.
Yeah, there's not room for all three of those guys. The way I see it, basically 11 of the 13 roster spots for pitchers are set. And then you've got Trinan, May, Kimbrel, Price, Ferguson fighting over those last two spots, those five guys. And Dave Roberts has said if Blake Trinan's healthy, he's going to be on the roster, which I think is the right call. Of course, they may have a different definition of healthy, able to throw doesn't necessarily mean healthy as in terms of wanting him on the NLDS roster. It might be they might want to see a little bit more. So I guess it's possible that they didn't see what they wanted to see from him this weekend and he won't be on the roster. But I'm assuming Trinan's probably on the roster. And then Dustin May is the big question because Dave Roberts did say last week that even if May is healthy, he's not a lock to be on the roster. And I think then it would come down to what they're looking for. And, the fact is, for as many ups and downs as Craig Kimbrel had this year, he did finish the season with 4 really strong games in low leverage. And I think it's going to come down to them asking, what are we more likely to need in this series? A reliever like May who can go 3 or 4 innings, or another, a low leverage 1 inning guy, and with the idea of keeping Kimbrel relevant and fresh and, see if he can earn more playing time down the road in a future game. Hopefully there's going to be a time in this series when the Dodgers are up by 5 runs and they need somebody to throw the 7th inning in a game that, a low leverage situation. And hopefully, I could see them wanting to use Craig Kimbrel in that situation. So it wouldn't shock me if Kimbrel got the spot over Dustin May. And I guess they could say, well, we want another lefty and go with Ferguson or Price, because Alex Vesia is going to be in the bullpen. Andrew Heaney will be in the bullpen technically, but he's not your typical lefty reliever. And so I could see them wanting another lefty, although against the Padres specifically, it's really just Juan Soto, and you've got Manny Machado batting right after him. And so I don't really see that many instances where you need 2 different lefties in a game, because, even if Soto comes up with 2 outs, you really want to, you go with Vesia and hope he gets that out. But I don't think they're going to really go matchup heavy that much. And so it seems like it's between May and Kimbrel for that last spot to me.
They should have brought back Adam Calera just to face Juan Soto and give him the nightmares that he had in 2019 when he faced him. But the other part too that'll play into it with, in terms of May, is there's 2 days and then 1 off day and then 3 straight games. Realistically, Dustin May probably can't throw, definitely can't throw back to back, can maybe throw every other day, but I don't think they'd want to do that. So it's one of those where if you're going to have Dustin May on the roster, barring Julio and Kershaw going like 8 innings, you're going to need to use them in one of those first 2 games as a reliever, because then if you don't use them, and then you're only going to get them to use, if it goes 5, you only get to use them in probably one of those last 3. And if, he's a guy that's going bulk innings, realistically in the postseason, you don't need bulk innings too many times unless you're up by a lot or he's dominating. And we're not sure that he's going to be that guy dominating. So that might also be, the one way in a longer series. Yeah, you can get May 2 appearances and relatively spread out and have them kind of planned out in a sense. Whereas in a short series like this, you can't. You probably need a guy that can go back to back. And, while Kimbrel didn't have the best, it's a matter of, Kimbrel wasn't good in the times he went back to back, at least most of the season, but he can go back to back. Whereas May might be better in one appearance, but he can't go back to back. That might be the other part that holds him out.
Yeah, unless they decide they do want to piggyback in games 3 and 4, have May follow Tyler Anderson and then have Tony Gonsolin start game 4 and Andrew Heaney follow him or whatever it is. But yeah, it really seems like it's going to come down to usage and what their overall pitching plan is for the series.
Best situation was Dodgers just win it in 3 and they don't have to worry about all this other stuff.
Exactly. Do that, Dodgers, and win each game easily. This
Yeah.
weekend was nice with no stress, right, Vince?
It was very nice. That's what exactly we're going to talk about next. But just a quick reminder to subscribe to Locked On Dodgers on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts, and be with us every Monday through Friday because we're here. We're going to be here for you throughout October, hopefully all the way into November, talking about relevant Dodger baseball. But yeah, Jeff, like you mentioned, 9 baseball playoff games over the weekend and 0 stress. Even though I'm a fan of the Mariners, they've always kind of been my secondary team, but not like in a not in a strong sense. Just like, oh yeah, the Mariners, I'll root for them. And I haven't had a reason to like really pay attention in October if you were a fan of them because they haven't been there since 2001. But it was an interesting way, and I don't know if MLB how they feel because MLB did all this to try to get the excitement and everything else. You had the last day of the season, which didn't matter at all. All the seeds were already locked. You had 3 of the 4 series in the wild card round only go the 2 games, and the advantage that you gave to the better record in those wild card rounds didn't matter too much because only one of those teams ended up winning that had home field advantage. So yeah, MLB for everything they wanted out of this new format, other than the money that they got from having these games on ESPN, they didn't really get what they thought it was going to bring them.
Yeah, maybe not. Although I saw someone made a good point that with all 3 home team or 3 of the 4 home teams losing, that actually adds more teams that will get home games in this postseason, and so more major league stadiums are going to host postseason games this year. I guess that's good for fans. I don't know how good it feels for Mets fans and Blue Jays fans and whichever other Cardinals fans right now. It probably doesn't feel great. Hey, we got to see our team lose 2 games, so hooray for the new format. I think it does kind of tell you that there's not much difference between the 3rd division winner. Usually, most years, I think there's going to be a division in each league that's a little bit weaker, and so I think we all basically agreed that the 2 central divisions were pretty weak this year and that their division winners wouldn't have won any other division in baseball, and they both went out and I guess the Indians won, right? Yeah,
Guardians
but
won.
what we're or Guardians, whatever they're called, but what we're seeing is there's not really that much difference between the 3rd division winner and the 3 wildcard teams. So it does, if you compare it to the college football playoff, and people say, well, 4 teams isn't enough in the playoff, and so we got to go to 16 teams or 900 teams or whatever they want to get a good cross section. And I think this kind of supports the idea that last year, the whichever 2 teams, the Phillies and the were the Mariners, the
Blue Jays.
the
The Blue Jays
the
would have made
Rays
it
were
last year.
the Rays were the 3rd wild card team, right?
Or there's only 2 wild cards this year. Yeah,
This year, yeah. So the Phillies and the Rays wouldn't have made the postseason last year or this year under last year's rules, and one of those teams advanced. And so it kind of shows, well, if you have a team that wouldn't have made the postseason and they're good enough to advance in the postseason, then maybe there weren't enough postseason teams before. I could see somebody make that argument. And if we accept the fact that Major League Baseball was going to shove expanded playoffs down our throats anyway, I kind of like this format. The Dodgers are rewarded for being the best team by having the first round bye. The Padres had to use their 3 best starters to get to the next round. So the Dodgers do have that advantage there. I think it's other than them not reseeding after the first round, which I really think they should do. And I think the only reason they haven't is because it's a good idea and Rob Manfred is allergic to good ideas. Other than that, I don't have any major complaints about the new playoff format.
yeah. It's one of those where I don't have a complaint now that we're in it, other than the reseeding. The fact that it's done is not I would have preferred Baseball is the one where it's 162 games. If you are one of the better teams over those whole 162 games, if you built a team that can last, has the depth and everything else, you should be rewarded by being one of few teams to make it into the playoffs rather than one of more teams. And, you could say, oh, yeah, well, the Phillies winning, whatever. Like, okay, but I argue that the Phillies should have won more during the regular season and they shouldn't be in it right now. And, after you get over that part of it and you're like, okay, this is now what it is. We can't do anything about it. Yeah, it was cool. It was fun. It was, you got teams that matched up pretty well, and most of the games were pretty competitive. You had, even though the series didn't go 3 games, the games were all fairly competitive. And it sucks for a team like the Rays. They gave up 3 total runs in 2 games and went 0-2, but that's just the way it goes. So yeah, once for me, it was just, I don't like the fact of devaluing the regular season too much, but we're beyond that point. And now that we are here and this is what it is, then yeah, I enjoy it. It is more baseball. For me personally, it's a little bit more work, but hey, I'm not going to be too upset about that. Although, the drama of the 1 game playoff, I think, is a little bit more fun. And we only really got one of those this year. But, like I said, there was a lot of good baseball or bad baseball that was good because it was close type of thing that happened this weekend. And yeah, it was good overall. But like I said, for me, it's just getting past the fact that the regular season gets devalued just a little bit because, like I said, the Dodgers 111 wins, Phillies 87 wins, and they're both in the same round right now.
Yeah, the one good thing is, records don't carry over, but talent does. And the Dodgers are a 111 win team, and realistically, maybe they're even better than that. They took the foot off the gas the last month of the season and still won 111 games. The Dodgers are the best team in baseball, and that does carry over. Obviously, we'll have to see, can they put their foot back on the gas immediately? Hopefully, facing Mike Clevenger helps with that. All that stuff. Can they overcome the emotionality of the Padres? And can they keep from throwing hangers to Manny Machado? This is totally off topic. I was watching these games this weekend and I realized, I don't know that I've ever seen Manny Machado hit a home run on a pitch that the pitcher would say, well, I made my pitch and he just beat me. I feel like he only hits mistakes. Like, if you execute your pitch, worst case scenario, he's going to hit a single. Like, I feel like Manny Machado is not going to beat you if you execute your pitch.
Yeah, which is why realistically, when he faces the Dodgers, he hits a lot of singles and not as many home runs. The Dodgers don't leave too many hangers like that. They have before, and he has hit some home runs against the Dodgers. But I feel like when he does beat them, it's mostly with singles. And yeah, that is the case. But yeah, like I said, the talent should win out, especially in this series. It's kind of similar to 2017, where, well, and not in the sense of like the D-backs had swept the Dodgers at the end and all that kind of stuff, but in the sense that the D-backs used 2 of their starters in that wild card game, if I'm not mistaken, Robbie Ray and whoever else it was. And then they had to throw Taijuan Walker in game 1 of the NLDS. And then the Dodgers put up 3 runs early on and, kind of cruised to victory there. That's a game where Kershaw, I think, gave up 4 home runs, but it didn't matter because the Dodgers had already put up 7 runs at that point or whatever the case was. So,
yeah, they were late homers, just like they were meaningless homers, throwaway game. So the kind of homers Manny Machado might hit, once the pitcher stopped caring anymore.
Yeah, that's the one he hit this weekend.
Yeah, it's I'm actually trying Baseball References splits tool is down right now. I was trying to pull up Machado splits this year to see how many of his home runs came when they were down by 3 or more runs or whatever, but it's not pulling up for me right now. So everybody do your own search. I'm not going to do everything for you.
Yeah, I guess rest of the weekend stuff. We had the Joe Musgrove ear check. I wonder if they actually saw it there, or I know that on the iPads they can't get Twitter, but I saw it on Twitter. But then Buck Showalter ended up coming out and asking, and then after the game, Joe Musgrove didn't say he didn't have anything on his ear. He just said that, hey, the umpires checked and I was good. But I think it's just a fun conspiracy.
Yeah, he did say, they asked what he was thinking when they came out to look for something, and he said, I was thinking they're not going to find anything. So he was, he was basically denying that he had anything. Musgrove, I don't know if we've talked about this on this podcast, his comments over I guess late last week. Basically, he said that he wants to win a World Series so he could have a World Series ring he's proud to wear because he's ashamed of the World Series his team cheated to win. Obviously, pitchers weren't the big part of that cheating. I don't know how involved they were. They could have been the trash can bangers. Oh, you're not playing today. You're a starter who's off. Maybe you're on trash can duty. I don't have any idea. because the investigation wasn't very transparent. But yeah, he's not proud of that one, and I guess he gets points for having self-awareness to not be proud of that. But I certainly hope that he is disappointed in his quest for a legitimate one this year.
Yeah, I would hope that he didn't know anything about it, because you saw, when that quote started coming out, and then, stuff gets posted, and, he did post with that ring, and did do all the celebrating, like, and everything else. And if he knew that, now that the fact that you're ashamed, that doesn't matter too much now that you got caught, but, whatever.
Yeah.
Good for him to say that it's not a real title. And, Astros fans probably hate him now, like they hate Mike Fears.
Mike
So,
Fires.
yeah, so whatever. But yeah, Jeff, I don't know if there was anything else from the weekend that you wanted to touch on, but
Yeah, no, it was a fun weekend. No stress, just enjoying baseball. Even the series that we cared about, because it was going to determine who the Dodgers play. It's like I don't have a strong preference either way. I'm just gonna. Yeah, the only thing I cared about was go 3 games. Actually, the main thing I cared about was Padres win the first game to make sure that DeGrom had to pitch in the series. After that, it's like, okay, if the Dodgers face the Mets, at least DeGrom can only go once and not until game 3. Other than that, I was like, okay, so it was nice and stress free. It was a lot of fun watching the Mariners come back against the Blue Jays. That was a extremely fun game. My best friend lives in Seattle, has become a Mariners fan since moving there. He's also a Braves fan, so he's hoping for 2 in a row, I guess. But so I'm happy for the Mariners. It was fun to see the Phillies explode in that first game against the Cardinals. That shocking comeback, and seeing Cardinals fans leaving early, hashtag best fans in baseball. That was fun. Mets fans left even earlier. And yeah, it was a fun weekend. We get one more day of no stress, and then the process starts of turning your beard into looking like my beard color-wise, Vince, because I think it's going to be stressful this October.
Yeah. Yeah. If the Dodgers could give us a run to the World Series like 2017, which was very not as stressful, I would take that. But realistically, we're not that stressed regardless. So we're here. We got one more day. Tomorrow's episode, we'll talk more about once the roster comes out, or we might have a crossover with Javi from Locked On Dodgers. Who knows? We'll see. We'll figure all that out.
Locked
tomorrow,
on Padres. But
we know what you meant. Padres, yeah. But yeah, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank y'all for listening. Thanks for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. Check out Locked On MLB for your second listen with our pal Sully. He's got the unique perspective on every team and the biggest stories around the league. He's the #1 daily league-wide podcast. Get him on Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get podcasts, which is also where you can find us. You can also find us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snider. I'm at Vince Samperio. If you need to get a hold of us, you can DM any of those accounts. You can also send us an email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or you can leave us a voicemail or send us a text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be with us when you get in your car. If you're at home, tell your smart device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.